What if I told you that we're actively choosing to make ourselves extinct, not through war, climate change, or disease, but through our own voluntary surrender of what makes us human? Imagine willingly trading your capacity for deep thought, genuine connection, and individual consciousness for the instant gratification of digital validation. That's exactly what's happening right now. And the most terrifying part is that we're doing it with a smile on our faces. Consider this real-world controversy. In 2021, Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen revealed internal research showing that the company knew Instagram was harming teenage girls' mental health, yet continued optimizing for engagement anyway. But here's the deeper psychological truth that makes this even more disturbing. We're not just being manipulated, we're actively participating in our own mental rewiring. A groundbreaking study published in iScience in 2021 used brain imaging to track people's smartphone usage and found something chilling. A higher proportion of social app interactions correlates with lower dopamine synthesis capacity in the bilateral putamen. In plain English, the more we use social media, the less capable our brains become of producing the very chemicals that make us feel motivated, focused, and alive. We're literally diminishing our own neurological capacity for experiencing genuine satisfaction. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, and a British intellectual saw it coming nearly a century ago. In 1931, Aldous Huxley published Brave New World, and unlike other dystopian novels that depicted oppression through force, Huxley imagined something far more insidious, a world where people would love their own oppression. His prediction wasn't about jackbooted thugs breaking down doors. It was about people voluntarily surrendering their humanity for comfort and distraction. In 1931, when Brave New World was being written, I was convinced that there was still plenty of time, wrote Huxley. 27 years later, I feel a good deal less optimistic. The nightmare of total organization is now awaiting us just around the next corner. But Huxley wasn't alone in seeing this future. Modern thinkers have expanded on this vision in frightening ways. Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff calls it surveillance capitalism, the unilateral claiming of private human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. Historians warn that we're entering an age of hacked minds, where algorithms know us better than we know ourselves. What Huxley understood, decades before smartphones existed, was that the most effective form of control doesn't come from external force. It comes from making people crave their own chains. In his world, citizens were pacified not by violence, but by endless entertainment, instant gratification, and a drug called soma that eliminated any discomfort or deep thinking. Sound familiar? We don't have soma, but we have something arguably more powerful: curated TikTok feeds and Instagram reels that have systematically destroyed attention spans. Recent research shows that our ability to concentrate has dropped from 2.5 minutes to 47 seconds in just 2 decades. A generation that once feared war now fears pregnancy more than global conflict, not because the world is safer, but because their attention is so fractured they can't process complex, long-term threats. The psychological mechanism Huxley intuited has now been confirmed by neuroscience. These apps can cause the release of large amounts of dopamine into our brain's reward pathway all at once, just like heroin or meth or alcohol. We're not just using social media, we're literally rewiring our brains to crave digital validation the same way addicts crave their next fix. But wait, before we dive deeper into this digital rabbit hole, ask yourself this. When did you last finish reading something that took longer than 5 minutes without checking your phone? If you can't remember, you're experiencing exactly what Huxley predicted. Here's where Huxley's vision becomes genuinely terrifying when viewed through modern psychology. In Brave New World, there is no depth of feeling, no ferment of ideas, and no artistic creativity. Individuality is suppressed. Intellectual excitement and discovery have been abolished. Consider this. When was the last time you sat with a difficult idea for more than 5 minutes without reaching for your phone? When did you last experience genuine boredom and let your mind wander into unexpected territories? If you're like most people, you can't remember, and that's not an accident. Research published in Neurobiological Risk Factors shows that internet addiction is characterized by an impairment of the metabolism of dopamine, serotonin, opioids, and some other neurotransmitters, which affects reward processing, executive functioning, salience. What this means in practical terms is that we're losing our ability to find satisfaction in activities that require sustained attention. Reading books, having deep conversations, solving complex problems, or creating original work. The algorithms don't just show us content. They train us to prefer certain types of thinking. They reward quick reactions over thoughtful responses, outrage over nuance, and tribal thinking over individual reflection. We're being conditioned to think in ways that make us more predictable, more controllable, and ultimately, less human. Think about how you consume information now compared to 10 years ago. Do you read entire articles, or do you skim headlines and react? Do you sit with uncertainty and ambiguity, or do you immediately seek confirmation of what you already believe? The platforms have trained us to be impatient with complexity and hungry for oversimplified answers. This isn't just about personal habits, it's about the future of human consciousness itself. We're creating a generation that might be neurologically incapable of the kind of deep, sustained thinking that built civilization, discovered scientific breakthroughs, and created great art. Now, here's where it gets personal. Think about the last time you felt genuinely uncomfortable with an idea or piece of information. What did you do? Did you sit with that discomfort? Or did you immediately reach for your phone to find something that made you feel better? Huxley's most profound insight was understanding that people will willingly choose comfort over truth, pleasure over growth, and distraction over confronting difficult realities. In his dystopia, citizens could take soma whenever they felt uncomfortable, effectively erasing any motivation to address real problems or pursue meaningful change. Our soma is more sophisticated. Every time we feel anxious, bored, or intellectually challenged, we have instant access to content designed to make us feel better immediately. Feeling insecure? Here's a curated feed that reinforces your worldview. Feeling lonely? Here are thousands of strangers who will validate your opinions. Feeling overwhelmed by complexity? Here's a simple meme that reduces everything to black and white. The psychological research is crystal clear on what this does to us. Studies show that frequent engagement with social media platforms alters dopamine pathways, a critical component in reward processing, fostering dependency analogous to substance addiction. We're not just becoming dependent on the platforms, we're becoming dependent on avoiding anything that makes us genuinely uncomfortable. But here's the deeper problem. We're losing our tolerance for intellectual discomfort, which is essential for learning, growth, and adaptation. A species that can't tolerate uncertainty or complexity is a species that stops evolving. We're choosing immediate comfort over long-term survival, just like Huxley predicted. The most insidious part is that this feels like freedom. We feel like we're choosing what to consume, who to follow, and what to believe. But when our choices are predetermined by algorithms designed to maximize engagement, are we really choosing at all? Or are we just following a script written by machines that understand our psychological vulnerabilities better than we do? Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. If I asked you to describe your political opinions, lifestyle preferences, and moral values, how much of that description would be indistinguishable from millions of other people in your demographic? More importantly, how many of those opinions did you form independently versus absorb from your digital environment? Huxley envisioned a world where humans were literally created in factories, but his deeper concern was about the mass production of identical thinking. Its inhabitants are laboratory-grown clones, bottled and standardized from the hatchery. We don't need genetic engineering to achieve this. we have something far more efficient: algorithmic conditioning. Think about how similar your social media feed looks to your friends' feeds. You might follow different accounts, but the underlying patterns are remarkably consistent. The algorithms don't just show you content, they shape how you think about that content. They determine what seems important, what feels urgent, and what deserves your emotional energy. Here's a disturbing thought experiment. If you were to describe your political opinions, lifestyle preferences, and moral values, how much of that description would be indistinguishable from millions of other people who fall into your demographic category? The platforms haven't just learned to predict your preferences, they've helped create those preferences in the first place. The psychological mechanism behind this is called social proof. We look to others to determine what's normal, acceptable, and desirable. But when others means a carefully curated selection of content designed to maximize engagement, we're not getting genuine social feedback. We're getting artificial social signals optimized to keep us scrolling. This creates what researchers call manufactured consensus, the illusion that everyone thinks the same way we do, which makes us more extreme in our views and less capable of genuine dialogue with people who see the world differently. We're not becoming more connected. We're becoming more isolated, trapped in individualized echo chambers that feel like community but function like solitary confinement. The most tragic part is that we're losing touch with our own authentic thoughts and feelings. When was the last time you had an opinion that you hadn't seen expressed online first? When did you last feel an emotion that wasn't immediately categorized and shared? We're becoming curators of our own experiences rather than authentic creators of original thought. So far, we've explored the psychological and social implications, but now we need to zoom out and ask the bigger question. What happens to a species that loses its ability to think deeply, adapt to complexity, and generate original solutions? Here's where Huxley's warning becomes truly urgent. We're not just talking about personal habits or social trends. We're talking about evolutionary pressure that could fundamentally alter what it means to be human. Consider the cognitive skills that built civilization: the ability to delay gratification, think abstractly, maintain focus over extended periods, tolerate uncertainty, and generate original ideas. These capabilities developed over thousands of years of human evolution, but they can be diminished in a single generation through environmental changes. A study published in the journal Addictive Behaviors found that individuals who reported higher levels of smartphone addiction showed altered patterns of dopamine receptor availability in their brains. This isn't just about feeling distracted. This is about fundamental changes to the neural architecture that supports higher-order thinking. Imagine a society where most people can't read a book, can't sit through a complex argument, can't tolerate disagreement, and can't generate original solutions to novel problems. This isn't dystopian speculation. This is the logical endpoint of current trends. The platforms aren't neutral tools, they're evolutionary pressure applied at scale. They reward certain behaviors and punish others, and those rewards and punishments are literally reshaping human consciousness. We're selecting against the very cognitive abilities that make us adaptable, creative, and capable of solving complex challenges. But here's the most frightening aspect. This process feels good. Unlike other existential threats that create obvious alarm, this one disguises itself as entertainment, connection, and empowerment. We're choosing our own cognitive diminishment because it provides immediate pleasure and relief from discomfort. The question isn't whether we can survive this, it's whether we'll still be recognizably human when we do. After all this doom and gloom, you might be wondering, is there any hope? The answer is absolutely yes, and it lies in understanding something Huxley couldn't have predicted: the incredible power of neuroplasticity. Your brain isn't permanently damaged by social media use. Research shows that people who quit social media for just 2 weeks demonstrate significant improvements in focus, well-being, and cognitive function. A recent study published in Behavioral Sciences found that a 2-week social media digital detox can significantly reduce smartphone and social media addiction while improving physical, mental, and social health among young adults. The situation isn't hopeless, but it requires acknowledging something uncomfortable. We are not passive victims of technology. We are active participants in a system that profits from our cognitive degradation. The first step toward freedom is recognizing that our current relationship with digital platforms is not sustainable, not healthy, and not inevitable. And resistance is already happening. The slow media movement is growing, with people choosing quality over quantity in their information consumption. Schools across the country are going phone-free and seeing dramatic improvements in student focus and social interaction. France banned smartphones in schools for children under 15, and test scores are climbing. This doesn't mean becoming anti-technology. That would be both impossible and counterproductive. Collaborative platforms like Wikipedia, educational apps that genuinely teach complex subjects, and tools that help us create rather than just consume are part of the solution. The key is distinguishing between technology that serves human flourishing and technology that exploits human vulnerabilities. Huxley believed that awareness was the beginning of resistance. In his later work, he argued that understanding the mechanisms of control was essential for maintaining human dignity and autonomy. The same principle applies today, but we now have practical tools to implement that resistance. Apps like Freedom or OneSec disrupt autopilot scrolling. Focus mode isn't a luxury, it's cognitive self-defense. These tools work by creating friction between you and your impulses, giving your prefrontal cortex time to override the dopamine-driven desire for instant gratification. Most importantly, it means remembering what we're fighting for, not just our individual well-being, but the preservation of human consciousness itself. The qualities that make us human, creativity, empathy, wisdom, and the ability to transcend our immediate circumstances, don't just happen automatically. They require cultivation, protection, and conscious choice. The future Huxley warned us about isn't inevitable, but avoiding it requires more than individual action. It requires collective recognition that we're facing an unprecedented threat to human cognitive development, and that addressing this threat is as important as any other survival challenge our species has faced. We still have time to choose a different path, but that time is limited. The question is whether we'll use it wisely or whether we'll continue scrolling toward our own extinction, one dopamine hit at a time. Aldous Huxley gave us a warning disguised as a novel, and nearly a century later, that warning has become a roadmap to our current reality. We're living in the early stages of the world he imagined, not through government oppression, but through our own voluntary surrender to systems designed to exploit our psychological vulnerabilities. Throughout this journey, we've seen how digital platforms mirror Huxley's Soma, how algorithms are creating cognitive clones, and how we're facing potential evolutionary pressure that could reshape human consciousness itself. But we've also discovered something Huxley couldn't have imagined: our remarkable capacity for cognitive recovery and conscious resistance. The question that remains is this: will you be part of the generation that sleepwalked into digital servitude, or the one that chose to wake up and reclaim human agency? Every time you choose to read a book instead of scrolling, have a difficult conversation instead of avoiding conflict, or sit with uncertainty instead of seeking immediate answers, you're participating in the preservation of human consciousness. Every time you use an app that disrupts your scrolling patterns, choose collaborative tools over consumption platforms, or engage with content that challenges rather than confirms your beliefs, you're voting for a different future. These small acts of resistance might seem insignificant, but they represent something profound: the choice to remain human in an age of artificial intelligence. The extinction Huxley predicted isn't physical, it's cognitive, emotional, and spiritual. But extinction events also create opportunities for evolution. The question is what we'll evolve into. digitally domesticated consumers of algorithmic content, or conscious human beings capable of shaping our own destiny. If this video has changed how you think about your relationship with technology, then you've already taken the first step toward resistance. Like this video to help others discover this perspective, comment with your own insights about digital manipulation, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. The future of human consciousness might depend on conversations like the one we're having right now. Remember, the choice is still ours, but only if we make it consciously, deliberately, and soon. And thanks to neuroplasticity, it's never too late to start rewiring your brain for freedom,